Good evening, everyone. We'll just give things a minute because there's still quite a few people joining, and then we'll make a start. Okay, let's get started then. So welcome to this PCS Facebook Live event. I'm Fran Heathcote, I'm President of PCS, and joining me tonight is our General Secretary, Mark Serwotka. Also, really warm welcome to our interpreter, Richard, who as always is trying to make the event as accessible as possible. Much like you've done in previous sessions, if you have any questions, comments, things you want me to read out, then do use the admins. Don't message me directly or put stuff in the chat, whether you're on Facebook or whether you have joined us by Zoom. The only way to get your questions through to me and therefore to Mark is via the admins, who will be putting instructions on the screen in terms of how you filter your questions through. So in a minute, I'm going to hand over to our General Secretary, Mark Serwotka. Mark's going to give you a bit of an update, a bit of an overview in terms of everything that's happened since we received our fantastic ballot result, one that we're very, very pleased with, but also talk to you a lot about some of the practicalities of what happens now, how it'll all work, and try to address the many issues and concerns that people have raised. As I say, we don't intend to run this much more than an hour. In that time, we'll hear from Mark quite a detailed presentation. We'll then allow lots of time to address as many questions and comments as we can get through. If by the end of it all, you feel that your question or comment just hasn't been addressed, there will be email addresses provided that you can filter those through so we can make sure that everybody gets an answer. So without any further ado, as I say, I'm going to hand over now to Mark. Mark's going to talk you through in some detail the background and the detail of what's happened to date, and then we'll go from there. So over to you, Mark.
Well, thanks very much, Fran, and good evening to everybody, and particular welcome to Richard. Can I welcome everyone who's given up their own time to join us tonight. What I want to do is start with the historic vote that we have delivered, explain to people what we've done since that vote has been received, and then in a very detailed way explain now the ongoing strategy, which is designed to put enough pressure on the government to force them to concede more money now for all of the members involved in this dispute, withdraw the threats to our redundancy scheme, gave a commitment that there will not be a cut in resources and a job security agreement for the union, and to give us justice on pensions. But I want to start by thanking everybody, every member, every advocate and every rep, and all of our staff who have worked so tirelessly over the last few months to produce what is a historic vote for this union. And I don't think we should have a meeting like this without reflecting on the historic nature of the result. We balloted 214 employers, and in 212 of those employers, we received an average yes vote to strike action of 86%. That has never happened before in the history of PCS. It's a phenomenal result, and it shows us that in all bar two of 214 employers, 86% of people voted for strike action. On top of that, in 126 of those employers, we broke the undemocratic thresholds that the government foisters on trade unions. That means we now have the ability to call legal strike action in 126 areas of our membership, covering in the region of 100,000 PCS members. In addition to that, when we've analysed the results, we can tell you that in 8 further employers, we were 1 vote short of getting over the threshold. And in many, many employers, we were literally handfuls of members short. So faced with that, I can say to anyone here who is a member or a rep in any of the areas where we didn't get over the threshold, that we've written out to our leading lay representatives in all parts of the union to make it clear that if anyone who just missed out wants to now be considered to be reballoted to join the national action that we're going to be taking, then a submission can be put in. And to that end, the NEC has already agreed that we will be reballoting our members in the HMRC group, the second biggest group in the union, who fell some hundreds of votes short of the threshold, but delivered a massive yes vote, because we think it is an important signal for the government to get that the campaign that's going to start off very strongly is going to grow, and getting our second biggest department into the national ballot is really, really important. So that's a historic vote that we've achieved. Now, what I want to go on to talk about is everything that the NEC has done since receiving those ballot results is entirely in line with the promises we made to members and reps in the ballot itself. The NEC doesn't believe that you can ask members for a massive mandate and then not do the things that you have said you will do if people entrust us with their vote. So I say that because the first thing the NEC has done since receiving these strike votes is not to call strike action, because we told members that if they gave us a mandate, the first thing we would do is go to the government to see whether or not they were going to make any proposals in line with our claim. So I can tell you that we gave the government and the Cabinet Office 7 days to table proposals. That in that 7 days, we have met both the leaders at the Cabinet Office, and I met earlier this week the new Minister for the Cabinet Office in order to press our demands. And it's very important, I think, therefore, that people understand that we gave the government the opportunity to do something to avert a strike. Now, I can tell people that in both those meetings, unlike previous meetings, we did not get dismissed. The government and the Cabinet Office have been forced to recognise our central point. There is a cost of living crisis. Our members have been treated worse than anyone else. And let's remind ourselves, we have been given a 2% pay remit when most other public sector unions are currently balloting for strikes when they have been offered more than double what we have had. So the health service, education, the fire brigades union service have all been offered in the region of 5%, and they've been rejected in all cases, and those unions are now balloting. So we've made the case to the government that we're being treated worse than everybody else. We're the only ones having our redundancy terms cut. We're the only ones overpaying for our pensions. And in both meetings, because the facts can't be disputed, there's had to be an acceptance that there needs to be further talks, and the door is remaining open for further talks. And indeed, I think on some of the areas in dispute, we believe that it is possible that we may be able to make some progress at some stage. But on the central question of money, the government's position remains that there is no money on the table now. And the view that the NEC takes is that without money being available now, given the appalling situation our members are in, we must move to take the industrial action. So on that basis, the NEC has met and has now called the first wave of industrial action, Fran. And we hope that when those notices go out, and the first notices for strike action will probably start to be issued tomorrow and on Monday, that gives the government 14 days notice of strike action, which is our legal requirement. And it gives them that further 14 days if they are minded to put proposals on the table. From our point of view, what I think we now all need to unite and agree is that having got such a massive vote, we now have to put the most pressure we can on the government to force them to do something about the appalling situation we are in. So the NEC, when it considered that, felt that what we now needed to do was to call an initial wave of strike action. And I'm using these words carefully because I've seen a lot of the questions that have been submitted, Fran, and I think there is some misunderstanding of what we've done. What the NEC has done is called the first wave of strike action, covering the first few weeks over the December and into January, as a sign to the government. The first action we will take will be some of the hardest hitting action that it will have faced in the civil service in decades, but it is our first wave, designed to put enough pressure on them to make them think again, but also designed, if they do not think again, that we can then announce further action that will be an escalation. In other words, we are trying to build more and more pressure on the government so that they cannot ignore us. So that means that we took on board what we said to members in the ballot itself, and I think it's important to just run through this. We were quite open that we feel that the history of our union tells us that calling one-day strikes do not in themselves put enough pressure on the government to force them to make concessions. Generally, we have a one-day strike and then people go back to work and the government sit it out. Every time we take a one-day strike, it costs our members massive amounts of money. Most of our members, every time they take a one-day strike, will lose anything between 50 and £100, depending on their earnings. And to ask people to lose that level of money, we all need to believe that that's enough to put pressure on the government. History tells us that that has not been enough. And history also tells us that because that isn't enough, we need to find that way of doing enough to force the government to realise they can't sit it out. So we asked members to endorse a strategy that was primarily based around sustained targeted action of our members in the areas that would have an immediate effect and build immediate pressure to show the government that they couldn't sit it out, and that sustained targeted action should be rotated around the union. No one should be asked to come out for 6 months on behalf of everybody else. And if we did that, the government would find ways of covering it. So we want to involve all parts of the union in a programme of sustained targeted action. And every single employer we balloted has been asked to submit plans to us at the centre about what action would have the most effect. But in addition to that sustained targeted action, we also know that we do need to show the government that all members are up for strike action that they voted for. And therefore, we do know we will need to call all member unpaid action. But because of the cost of that to members, we want that to happen at the time that will have the most effect. That's what we said to members in the ballot itself. And what we hinted at in the ballot, and what we've confirmed in a number of meetings, is the NEC's judgment is the biggest effect is if we can take strike action with other unions, so that when we are all out without pay, if we're doing that alongside hundreds of thousands, if not millions of other workers, that has the maximum amount of pressure on the government. So the NEC has been working hard, and I can say to you that we are very optimistic that in the new year, it looks like there may well be a coalition of anything up to 20 unions prepared to consider taking action together. Those unions in the main are balloting now, and most of those unions' ballot results will be known late December, early January. So the NEC believes that if we can, calling all our members out with hundreds of thousands of other public sector workers will be an incredibly hard line for the government to have to sort of find a way around. It'll be a massive statement of intent. And if it's taken place already after weeks of sustained targeted action in the civil service already causing them serious problems, it will build much more pressure on the government than just taking a one-day strike and not following it up with anything else. That's what we promised members in the ballot insert, and that's what the NEC has done. So we've announced the first wave of action that involves DEFRA, the Home Office, and the Department for Transport and its agencies. That action is going to start from the 12th of December and run right through to the middle of January. We're not announcing specific dates in those areas until the last possible moment to give the government the least amount of time to prepare, because we know that they are training the military to do the work of border force members and people who deal with immigration. We know that they are preparing internally within the civil service to try and get people to volunteer to strike break. So the less information and time we give them over and above the legal requirements, the better. But I can tell you that the moment those notices are served, we will do a massive amount of publicity and solidarity building within PCS and outside to show support for those members who are leading the charge for us, and to show the government that everybody supports people. So I would urge people tonight that when you see the first strikes announced early next week with notices served, that every branch sends messages of support to those workers who are going on strike. You attend any picket lines or demonstrations as they are announced, and that we make it clear to the government that this is our opening shot. It's going to be a hard-hitting start, but there's going to be more of it as we proceed. Now, I want to acknowledge, Fran, that there has been some in the union who believe that we should have moved to all-member unpaid action earlier. As I've said, the NEC's view is there will need to be all-member action at some stage, but for the reasons I've given and the promises we made to members, we wanted that to be at its maximum impact and after there'd been some hard-hitting action. People should make no doubt at all that the action, when it starts, will cause severe disruption. It is likely to attract a massive amount of publicity and attacks on the union from the right-wing newspapers and from politicians. But that should be a sign to everyone that the action we're taking can't be ignored and is having an effect. I can also confirm to people tonight that apart from talking to other unions about a mass public private sector strike early in 2023, we are also talking to unions, and I can tell you that when the Department for Transport members come out on strike, and there will be lots of them over the next month at various times, doing everything from our driving examiner members to the DVLA and our central highways members and DFT staff. We are already talking to unions like the RMT that has announced 8 days of strike action now over December and January to ensure that when they're on strike, if we've got members working in the transport sector whose action will be more effective, that we attempt to coordinate with them. So Fran, what I'm hopefully getting across is that what members voted for and what we're trying to deliver is not a protest. It is not something the government can ignore. It is action that can be sustained and really hits them hard. And they're going to see that in transport, DEFRA and the Home Office. But we are already in discussions now about the next wave of action. And I can say tonight that that will be including members in the DWP in offices that are scheduled for closure, where we will have some fairly significant strike action over the Christmas period. We are talking to our members in Scotland, in the devolved areas, who clearly have a whole range of other unions in Scotland trying to get action to get the Scottish government to give more pay. And we are considering every other part of the union has put submissions in to ensure this high sustained targeted action can continue and build the pressure. So I hope what people can see from that is a strategy to win. And I hope that people, whether it's in DWP or any other part of the union, thinking, why aren't we out yet? That what you can see is everybody will be asked to come out alongside targeted action, as well as all member action over the period of the next 6 months. And the ballot mandate we've got runs up to the 7th of May. And our view has always been, we're not going to win in a quick week. We're going to have to build the pressure so that the government realizes this isn't going to go away, with other unions as well as within PCS itself. So Fran, the final thing I wanted to cover is that because therefore I hope what we've got across is we have a huge vote, we have a case where we're being treated worse than anyone else, and we're going to start with action that hits them hard, is then the question of the levy that the National Executive Committee has decided on, why we're having to do that, and how that is going to be done and how it's going to be used. And I want to just give a little bit of detail around this, Fran, because I know there's been lots of questions. The first thing to say is that the NEC, in notifying members and branches of its intention to have the levy, is not the decision that we have already decided to increase people's subscriptions next week. It is an early notice of intent so that people can understand the reasons why, ask questions before any changes are made for a temporary period. There will be no levy taken from any members in 2022. It will start at some point early in 2023. All of that will be done within all our legal requirements to notify people who have direct debits to the union, where they will all have a minimum of 1 month's notice. And before we get to that, we're going to be doing a series of efforts to explain to people why we're doing it. So there's already an FAQ. I did a short video along with my dog yesterday that people may have seen to explain what we're doing. But I do want to focus on it tonight, because lots of people have quite rightly asked, why are we doing it? How is it going to be done? And why can't we find another way? Well, the first thing I want to say to people is that the raising of the money was raised in the ballot insert itself. If people look at the ballot insert when they voted, we made it clear that we would be asking members to contribute to raise the money we need to support sustained action. I hope everyone can agree here tonight that if you find next week there are some PCS members taking strike action, in some cases for 2 to 3 weeks, in some cases even a month, those members can't be expected to lose pay, because they're not striking for themselves. They're striking, yes, to benefit themselves and their families, but they're striking for everyone else. Our demands are not to improve the pay in DEFRA or the Home Office or the Department for Transport only. They are to get more money for every single PCS member in the dispute, to get guarantee for jobs and job security and terms and conditions for every member. So it follows that if members are striking for everyone, we can't ask them to lose money while no one else does. That's why the union will be paying full strike pay to all members that come out on selective action to ensure that members are not worse off. That means we have to have the money to raise it. The union currently has £3 million in its strike fund, and the NEC has already agreed to put a further £1 million from its central account to give us a fighting fund of £4 million. Now, I'm stressing this point, Fran, because we know that some employers have looked at our fighting fund and they're already calculating how far does £3 million go and we can sit that out. In fact, we know of some of our sister unions who've had a strategy like this in the past and have run out of money and have not been able to win the dispute because they didn't have the money to keep it going. We cannot be in that situation. The government and the employers need to know that we are going to raise the 7 or 8 or 9 million pounds that we probably want to show them we have got to run this type of targeted action for the entire period of the ballot up to May. The first wave of targeted action we take will cost the union in the region of £1.2 million. So the reason we're not putting up a levy now is because we are going to start using our central strike fund to pay for the first wave of targeted action and probably the second. But what we can't do is get to a position where the action we want to take, we do not have the financial wherewithal to raise it. So raising a levy in plenty of time means we will always have the funds that could be paying any single person on this call who may be asked to come out on targeted action at some point in the next 6 months. No union in the UK has the ability to cover full wages of its members for sustained strike action, and we are certainly not one of the richest. So it follows, as we said in the ballot insert, that we need members to contribute. And that's why the levy that the NEC's agreed will only be for members who are involved in the ballot. So there's no PCS member outside the 214 employers will be asked to contribute on a compulsory basis because they won't gain from the dispute. But in the 214 areas, 212 that voted yes, everybody stands to gain if we're successful. So that's why the NEC has taken the decision that we need the employers and our own members to realise we've going to have more than enough money to fund the action that if the government sees that for 4, 5, 6 months in advance, will force them to take us far more seriously. So the question then becomes, Fran, if everybody can follow the logic that the hardest hitting action is the most sustained, nobody can afford to come out on a sustained basis without any pay, so we have to raise the money. The union's already contributing more than half of the money that we're trying to get in this period centrally. So the rest needs to come from the people who are in dispute. Now, the question that then raises, which is one that I do just want to cover very briefly, is the cost of that to members, and in a cost of living crisis, how can members afford it? So I just want to be clear that the NEC was very conscious. We have some of the lowest paid members in the public sector. Nobody is in a position, in fact, the vote tells us everybody is desperate for more money. But to get more money, we have to force the government to concede. To force the government to concede, we have to take enough action to force them to recognise they have to concede something. Therefore, the question is, with a low paid membership, what's the best way of doing that? And I just want to illustrate this with an example. The levy, which will only run for the period of the ballot mandate, which is currently up to May, and would only then be renewed if we have to reballot as part of that reballot process, means that all our members in dispute are going to be asked in reality to contribute around 4 months of a levy of £3 or £5. So in real terms figures, we're asking people for 12 quid or 20 quid over a 4-month period. Now, I don't dispute for a minute that for a lot of people that will seem like money they do not have at the moment. But if we didn't do the levy and asked those members to come out for a one-day strike, people will lose anything between 2, 3, 4, 5 times as much money for a one-day strike that we don't believe on its own will win. So what we're actually asking members to contribute here is far, far less than they would be contributing if we called a series of unpaid one-day strikes with far less chance of winning. So the question we have to ask ourselves, therefore, I think, is it better to contribute 12 or 20 pounds over a 4-month period with a chance of winning something, supporting people taking hard-hitting action, or is it that we don't raise that money, we don't do the targeted action, And we just ask everyone to do what the RMT and the CWU are currently doing, which is to be able to deliver unpaid national action. Now, the Postal Workers Union have already had 9 days of strikes. They've just announced a further 6 or 7. The RMT have had 8 or 9 days of strikes. They've just announced a further 8. Members told us in the ballot that their single biggest concern, they wanted to vote yes, was could they afford to strike? And the question I think we have to ask ourselves is, if we felt we could deliver 15, 16, 17, 18 days of strike action, then it may well be that is the best way to go, because that has the hardest hitting effect. But nobody has ever indicated to us that the members we're representing, in the poverty that many of them are in, could afford taking 10, 12, 15 days of strike action. But what we hope those members would be able to see is that supporting others through a modest financial contribution to take action that's not just for 10, 12 days, but will run over months when we all go in it together, having a real effect, gives us a chance of winning. And that ultimately is what we want to do. So Fran, in finishing, I hope that what people can see is everything we've done is in line with what was raised in the ballot insert. Everybody wants to win. Some of our members are saying they want to go on strike sooner because they think that can help. Other members are telling us that they are really worried about paying an extra £3 or £5. And what we have to do is combine everyone's concern and come up with the best way of defeating the government. I have no doubt that the action people will see in the next month will get us more pressure on the government than we've been able to muster on them any time in recent history. That's the first wave. If they see we're raising the money, and then there's a second wave of action, and potentially we're all out with hundreds of thousands of other workers early in 2023, we will be building more pressure on them than we have ever managed to do in the last 15 to 20 years. It also means that people worried about losing pay for any one-day national strikes will see that when we ask that question, they will have already seen that the union has made a flying start and the pressure is already building on the government. So the final point, Fran, is the where with it all. So first of all, just to explain that we will make it clear when any levy is intended to start. That is not going to be until 2023, and there will be at least a month's formal notice to anybody who is paying a direct debit. We believe that everyone in the dispute hopefully will understand why doing that gives us a better chance of winning and gives us the best chance of maximizing our efforts. But that we do want to be clear that if we have members who are in such a difficult situation that the 12 or 20 pounds tips them over the edge, that in the same way we would approach those members if we called a strike, by saying to them, we want you to support the strike, but we have hardship funds, we have means of trying to support members in the direst circumstances. That should be the approach that we take now. It isn't to just say no one pay the money or let the government think we can't win. It's to say we look after our own. And whenever there is a one-day strike, and this is the last point that I'll make, is that we know people say they're struggling, but every rep who's trying to build a strike will have had conversations saying, if you don't come out on strike, it means it's harder for us to win. Come out on strike. If we win, that's the way that you get a long-term future with decent pay. And if you have an immediate short-term crisis, we have branch hardship funds, group hardship funds, and we will try to look after our own. But ultimately, I hope that people can put it in this context, that 12 or 20 pounds over a 4-month period is a significantly lower amount of money that people would be asked to contribute than if, for example, we had already called a one-day strike. And I hope what people can get from that is what we're trying to do is put the maximum pressure on the government, but trying to get our members to sacrifice as little as we can get away with. Clearly, we'll all have to make a sacrifice, but the less we can make the sacrifice and the more pressure we can build, the better chance we have of winning. So I hope that's dealt with some of the questions and concerns, Fran, that are coming up. But what I'd really hope people to urge at the end is obviously do ask the questions. But what I hope we can all agree on this call is now that we've got this vote, we want to win. We don't want this to be a great vote and a protest and a glorious defeat. We want to win. And that means doing everything you can to show solidarity next week to our first wave of strikers in DEFRA and the DFT and the Home Office in the next month. Put in your submissions if you think you can also be part of that targeted action and have a real effect, and you'll get the same financial support. And everybody be ready early in the new year for hopefully a massive strike involving not just us, but potentially many, many other unions to really show the government we mean business. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark, and hopefully people have found that helpful in terms of talking through in some detail exactly what the levy means. There are a few questions which I think you've probably covered, Mark, but might be helpful. I mean, not surprisingly, you know, over the last few days, knowing that this event was happening, we've had literally hundreds of queries about every aspect of what's happening. So whilst I won't be able to read out every single one, what I think I'll hopefully be able to do is use the ones that have come in, including the ones that have come in tonight, to give people a flavour and to allow Mark to respond. So I think probably if we start with Phil Evans, who I know because we had the DVLA dispute and Phil was a stalwart of that. Phil asks, what are the criteria for which members will be paying £3 and which members will be paying £5 as an extra contribution to the strike fund? And on a similar note, we had a very similar query where Leanne asks, at what point does £3 become £5 a month? And obviously that's not what we're saying, so it might be helpful, Mark, to explain that from the outset. Can somebody unmute Mark, please?
Thanks very much, Fran. Two things to say about that. The £3 doesn't become £5. The £3, £5 split is based on membership earnings and based on our subscription banding. And essentially, and I'll get back if I think I've got the right figure here, but I'll get back. It's basically people on under £24,000 a year paying £3, and people over 24,000 are paying £5. But what I would also say is when this is all launched, and obviously this isn't going to be until early next year, we will also be making it clear that anyone who wants to contribute more, or anyone who's not in the dispute who wants to contribute as a PCS member, or another union, we will also be making a huge voluntary effort to try to boost those sums. So if someone on here now is thinking, I can afford a lot more than a £5, people will have the opportunity to pay more. But the £3, £5 was done on a basis of how to administrate something that's very complex and just trying to recognize that that wage level was trying to make it less of an amount for people on under 24,000. So I hope that explains that, and that amount won't fluctuate and unless people want to give more voluntarily on top of that.
That's really helpful, thank you. Not surprisingly, there are lots of people saying I can't afford it, but equally there are lots of people saying I'm more than happy to contribute £5 a month. In fact, I would be prepared to contribute more. There are also people saying that they work in a group or an area that didn't get over the threshold, but would still be prepared to make contributions, which is great because you know, it's about us, everybody that will benefit being asked. But Eric Snaith asked, will non-members be approached for voluntary donations, seeing as they will also benefit from any positive results that arise from the dispute? And I think, you know, to save Mark breath a little bit, anybody that we can approach to encourage to donate, you know, that's what this is all about. It's about getting, you know, I think Mark's just outlined it, really getting as many people as possible to contribute, but recognizing that if we're all going to benefit from the outcome, whether or not you're in an area that got over the threshold, then it stands to reason, doesn't it, if other people are taking the action, that we would support them, recognizing that it's a lot less than people would lose from a day's all-out action over the course of those 4 months. So yes, so Pritesh Mystery says, I was wondering, will our monthly subscription reduce back down to its normal monthly fee if and when we get our pay rise? I mean, Mark, I don't know if you want to say anything about that, but clearly, you know, if we're successful, then yeah, there won't be a need for a levy, will there?
Yeah, so yeah, just to comment on those. So first of all, just to be clear that everybody in the ballot is being subjected to the levy. It is not just the people over the threshold, it is everyone in the ballot, because what we've got to remember here is that 212 areas voted with an 86% strike vote. And obviously the reason for that is if people aren't over the threshold, they can't take strike action, but they will still benefit if we win. So the logic of the levy is it's applied everywhere who's in the ballot itself. The people not in it are members in the private sector and members of PCS who were not covered by the ballot, who wouldn't stand to gain. And there's a very simple rationale there. If you're going to win something, gain something because we're in dispute, then that's where you're being asked to contribute. In terms of non-members, it is worth saying, Fran, that the membership of the union today is higher than it has been at any time since the Tories withdrew Check-off. People have been joining PCS in their thousands. And I think that we all know that people are joining the union because of the fabulous work that people are doing in offices and workplaces, and because they can see that we're trying to do something. So obviously that's a really good sign. So if people are non-members, it'd be great if they gave us money. It'd be even greater if they joined the union, I think is a message that we do want to build the union more as a result. And that includes in some of the targeted action areas. I think we want to make sure that where we're calling the targeted action, the people who have never been in the union before join, because obviously the more people in those workplaces on strike, the more effect it was going to have. On the will a levy go down, the guarantee is this levy is only going to be applied whilst there is a dispute. The legal mandate that we have of members is for 6 months, starting from November 7th and runs out on the 7th of May. So therefore, any levy that we're asking for can only be for the duration of the dispute. If the dispute is still going in May, and hopefully we'll have won by then, but let's imagine it's in May and we're really having an effect and the government's wobbling, we'll do what the RMT has just done, I'm sure, and reballot to get a new mandate. And therefore, again, that question will be part of any reballot. So people's subs will be what they have always been. This extra £3, £5 is only for this dispute while there is a mandate. And I would just want to say, Fran, the guarantee to everyone is every single penny that comes in is for strike pay, for people taking action. It is not for anything else. It will not end up anywhere else in the union. It's not an extra tax. It is only to pay strike pay. And it would stop the minute that we felt we'd won enough in the dispute itself. So I just want to be clear about that. And therefore, you know, what you know now is this will not go past May unless we have reballoted and won another mandate in May to continue taking further action.
Okay, thank you. Scary Kiri, and I hope I've pronounced that right, says, I have a friend who works in the private sector who's a non-member, therefore, and asked how they can donate to PCS's levy. Is that possible? And just to answer that, we're currently working on getting a donate button onto the website and a Facebook page so that anybody that wants to can donate to our strike fund. And it's great that people are coming out and saying that. I actually saw a message from an ARMS member today saying, obviously this has an impact on me now, but I would really like to donate to the strike fund. I would like to make sure that I pay into what you're doing. So, you know, things like that, we need to make it as easy as possible, don't we, for people to be able to donate. There are a couple of questions, Mark, that you probably do want to pick up. So Martin Mellis says, why does Mark feel that the HMRC will achieve a greater than 50% result in the next ballot? So in other words, where we're reballoting the HMRC who came very close next time, why do we think that the next result will be any different?
Well, first of all, I attended a meeting of the GEC in HMRC today, and for any member who doesn't know what GEC, that's basically your leading lay representatives in the HMRC group. Fantastic, positive meeting where we discussed the reballot. Everybody believes that it's essential that HMRC are part of the campaign moving forward. HMRC fell 756 votes short, I think. Out of a membership of over 22,000. So it was very close. So, you know, we can't assume that we're going to win. We're only going to win with a lot of hard work. But when this reballot happens in HMRC, a number of things people will have seen. They will have already seen PCS members on strike, hopefully having a real effect. People will begin to see that the union is on the, you know, is forcing the government to at least take us seriously. That members in HMRC stand to gain as much as anyone else. If we win, there'll be more money for HMRC members. They will have job security arrangements in line with everyone else, pensions, justice, and no cuts to redundancy terms. The other thing I think it's fair to say is that the resources of the union in the national ballot, Fran, had to be spread across 214 employers. When we reballot HMRC in the new year, it will be one employer we're doing, and that allows the union to put all its resource to help our colleagues there win. And that doesn't just mean full-time officers. I think it's fantastic to hear anecdotes about the reaction to HMRC's result. I was told today was reps from areas who have got over the line immediately ringing their colleagues and saying, we really feel for you, but we'll be there to help you next time. We'll be on the call hub. We'll be outside leafleting. So we're going to basically have the whole of the union trying to get them over the line, and they're very, very close. What I would say to anyone else who's considering it is also, we don't want to reballot for reballoting's sake. We want to reballot which adds to the dispute. HMRC is such a significant part of the union. We do want them on board. But if you're in one of those employers that got close and you think again that now people will have seen Jeremy Hunt's statement and think it's even more important, then just put in a submission and we will reballot. The final thing, Fran, I wanted to say as part of this is one member did write to me and say, well, I don't agree with the strike at all, and asking for 10% is daft. And I just want to say to ourselves that since we last met, let's look at Unite, the union, and the Liverpool Docks. The Liverpool Dockers in Unite went on strike, and they have won pay rises, I think, between 14 and 18%. In our own union, our private sector members in Bays, in Aramark and ISS, who are striking for fair pay, have achieved a significant increase in pay, potentially up to 11%. That's in our own union. Countless other unions are winning double-digit pay rises. So what I hope we can get across here is if they can do it, so can we. And if we think about who's on this call tonight, not getting a passport, not getting a driving license, job centre being closed, problems at the ports and at the airports, problems in DEFRA and right throughout our membership, if the government realise that's not a one-day protest, but is ongoing disruption, when daily they are being savaged in the media, who didn't see the piece about asylum decisions on the media all day, about the fact it's low-paid staff, not enough of them. They are very susceptible to pressure because of the mess they're in. And if we can put that pressure on, we can win as well.
Okay. I mean, not everybody is happy, clearly. Steve Dowling says, I don't think we would have got the votes if PCS had been honest and told us all the fees would be raised to £20 per calendar month. Well, clearly, I think Mark's explained that's not the case. Been paying him for years, so the strike fund should be massive. Okay. And also, Paul Carruthers asks, why wasn't the money that we spent on the court action with Care for Cali not used for the strike fund? There was no ballot asking if we'd like to be involved in that action. And it might be worth, Mark, just explaining why we supported that action and why it was so important.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we haven't spent a penny on the court action for Care for Cali. And so just to be clear, not a single penny has been spent because the outcome of the court case is not known. And if we win the court case, we will not spend a penny. But the decision taken to support our members in the Home Office, the members who have to work in conditions, for example, where there is diphtheria and monkeypox and COVID, and there are sexual assaults going on of people being held in inhumane conditions, doesn't just affect refugees, it affects our members. Our members who were told to turn people around mid-channel at risk of death, and our members are being told to send people to Africa. We should stand by them. And that's why we took the legal action in solidarity with people being treated in a barbaric manner and in solidarity with our own members being put in those positions. But it hasn't cost us a penny. In terms of the fighting fund itself, just to be clear, the union has a £3 million fighting fund. We have already just put an extra £1 million in. And so you can tell that is already half of the money that we are penciling in that we want to raise to keep this action going for 6 months. So I just think we should be clear about that. That it's not like the union sitting back and saying this all falls on members. The first half of that is already money that we have and that we want to use. It is just giving a signal that we want to show the government that we can keep going. And the final point, because I do accept not everyone is happy, but the question I think that people therefore have to consider, if people don't want to levy, do they want to go on strike unpaid? Do they think that more members will be happy not paying the levy, but being called out on unpaid strike action? Because what's really at its heart here, I think we're sort of losing sight of the fact members voted massively for a strike because they want us to win. People don't want to win and give up more of a sacrifice if they can win through other means, is the point. I think what people want to do is win. And what we're trying to do is something that has more effect and asks less of members. Now, if it doesn't work and we still do not get any pay, of course, it may well be that people say we need to escalate all of this and do something more in line with the RMT and the CWU. But I think most people hopefully will understand that surely this is a better way, and it's, by the way, what we said when we balloted members, than asking people to lose so much. Because what would be catastrophic is not people saying, no, I don't want to pay the £3. It is if people said, well, I don't really support what's happening because there's nothing we can do, we can't win. And that would be catastrophic because then the government win. Believe you me, that no matter how many people worry about the £3, £5 for a short period of time, the government are the ones worrying if they think we can fund the action. And let's be clear, if we don't raise the money, we wouldn't be able to fund the action. That's I think is the dilemma that we are in. Now, what I would say though, and I'll just leave at this point, is, genuinely, if when we start down this road, if what we get back is a groundswell of members saying, I'd rather not pay the levy, but I want you to call us on all-out strike, I have absolutely no doubt that the NEC, if that's the message it got, would absolutely want to listen to what it was being told. But at this point, the message we're getting is people want the union to win, but people are worried about what they can afford. And that's why we hope this is the best balance of juggling those two competing tensions.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, just to Denise Andrews, I've seen your query, Denise, and I do think you need to raise that separately. That is not anything to do with the levy. And if your subs have doubled from January, we need to have a look at that. So do contact us separately about that one. James Lawson, just to reassure you, James, there are no silly questions. And he says, I may sound silly, so if the government caves and gives us a pay increase, would that be for all departments or just, for example, in the Home Office? Well, Mark.
Yeah, so to be clear, that we are not asking the government to just give money to the Home Office. We are saying that the government centrally, in discussions that have already started with Alex Chisholm and with the Cabinet Office Minister, we're making it clear we want more money for everyone that we have balloted. That's the 214 employers in the ballot. And therefore, we are not going down a route of having just offers in one department, and so one group of members are better off and nobody else gets anything from it. This is a national dispute aimed at getting more money for everyone, job security agreements for everyone, pensions justice for everyone in the civil service pension scheme, and no cuts to our redundancy terms. So I can guarantee if there's a member in a department giving the levy, not yet on strike, and that the government decide that the pressure on them means they need to give us something, what we're saying is it has to be given in a way that all our members benefit, not just in some employers.
Okay, thank you. Christian Oliver says, let's get something out advising ideas about fundraising. Not only is it funds coming in, but it's also great for camaraderie and solidarity. And I think that's absolutely right. Lots of us are seeing lots of really positive things that members are doing to try and raise funds. We had a employee of PCS who doesn't work for PCS now, Andrew Fisher, who's written a book, and he has posted on Twitter that half of the proceeds to that book will be going to the PCS Strike Fund. So it's little things like that that make a massive difference, and any ideas for fundraising would be very welcome. Sarah Evans, who's the branch chair of the DVLA branch in Swansea, says the pressure from our members at the DVLA is still being felt, and just this morning the CEO is again up in front of MPs trying to explain herself. Well, we can do that as a branch of 3,200 members. Imagine what we can achieve as an entire union against the government. There are lots of questions about which bits of DFT, which bits of DVLA. Will it be the entire department? Will it be certain group or employer groups within the department? And all of that, I think, Mark, will be published with some detail and clarity to individual groups of workers. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I do actually, because obviously, to be clear here, when we're calling this action, just to reassure people, this isn't yourself and me, Fran, or the NEC. That everything we're doing is in discussion with the leading lay representatives out there in the field. So what I can confirm is, let's take transport as an example, that we have had discussions with the senior elected reps in transport. And what we want to do is to ensure that every time we call someone out, it is having a specific hard-hitting effect. So that means that within the DVLA itself, when we announce and serve notice, the action we'll be calling will have been action that has been discussed with the DVLA reps. And it's good to know Sarah's on the call, and I know I'm personally going to the DVLA, I think, shortly, as part of members' meetings to run through some of this. So anyone who's on here now, who's a member or a rep, people should contact their senior elected reps in your group and talk to them. And also, if you think that there's areas that we haven't considered, do tell us, because I just want to be clear, this is the first wave of action. Much of the stuff that we've also got ready to roll has come from members and reps in areas that we have never done before, and is designed to really give the government a headache. And I just want to remind people here, we have won this ballot in the Cabinet Office. We've won the ballot in the Land Registry, in BEIS, Department for Levelling Up, in DCMS, in countless employers across the rest of England and Wales, in areas that each one on themselves can have a real effect on their employer if they were to take action. So that's an ongoing discussion with reps. But if you are in the DVLA, do talk to Sarah or our reps, and all of that will be announced at the appropriate time. But I hope that people can also accept that the more we announce everything in advance, the more the management will start trying to put their contingency plans in place. So we are trying to comply with our legal requirements, but to call stuff to give them as little notice as possible.
Okay, thank you. There are quite a few questions from DWP members saying that they, particularly ones that came in before the call started, saying why aren't they being asked to take action? So I think what you've reported there around some targeted action, the DWP would very welcome. Clearly, also people making points about, you know, the period between Christmas and New Year being particularly a time to put pressure on. Members from Scottish Government saying, you know, how does it work with Scottish Government? Who do we need? You know, well, the employer. Let me find the question. There are a number of those from Scottish Government members saying there's no mention of any Scottish Government departmental action within the email or Scottish Government at all. Can you confirm if our colleagues will be striking as they voted yes, and our pay deals are completely separate from the UK government? How does that work in terms of having a devolved administration for a government? So I don't know if you want to just pick up on that, Mark.
Yeah, I will. And not to be outdone by the dog on my video, my cat's just made an appearance and walked across the screen.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all great questions. So first of all, on the DWP, the DWP will be involved in this campaign. It'll be involved when we call all member action, but it will also be involved in targeted action that the group is considering. And we have already, I think, got plans to announce strikes over an extended period in at least 2 job centres faced with closure, and therefore DWP will be involved in the action going forward. And you know what we say in DWP, and I've had long discussions with Martin Kavanagh, the group president, is now that the DWP have beaten the threshold, our biggest department, we obviously will gain when we have all member action, because there's thousands of them. But if targeted action can be taken to save offices, defend jobs, or hit the employer, then that's obviously what we would definitely want it to be doing. In Scotland, so 2 things in Scotland. Firstly, when we wrote to the government, giving them 7 days to make proposals, we also wrote to Nicola Sturgeon, making it clear that whilst the issue of redundancy and pensions were actually Westminster issues, the question of pay in Scotland for members working for the devolved government was very much on her watch. Most of our members, around 20,000 in Scotland, work in Westminster departments, but I think there are 10,000 plus in the devolved areas. And the devolved areas, I just want to reflect, produced a fantastic vote. I mean, we had over 30, I think, employers in the Scottish devolved areas that won the ballot, including Scottish Government's fantastic effort. So I know this week our representatives in the Scottish sector have been meeting, and Scotland will be part of any national member action. But if our members and reps in Scotland believed all our devolved branches can take action together to put pressure on the Scottish government, we will of course be wanting to support that, Fran. So there is that dimension in Scotland, and similarly in Wales, where there will be devolved pay for some of our members in Wales. Some of our devolved areas got over the threshold, not all. And so we are conscious of those different dynamics. And I hope what people are getting from that really is that, you know, we want everybody involved in the action at some point. And what we want to do is maximize the pressure on those who make decisions. So if it's Nicola Sturgeon needs to be pressured to give money to the devolved nations, she needs to be under pressure. If it's Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt who need to be put under pressure to give everyone else more money and protect jobs, pensions and conditions, then we need to build pressure against them as well. So I hope that's a clear answer. And I might invite anyone on the call, Fran, because we always take the view, the people who know best about what works are members and reps in the workplaces who know how their employer works. So if people put in submissions or didn't, or have since thought, you know what, something's happened and there's even more pressure, get together with members and reps and put a submission in, because what we want to do here is call action wherever we know it will create real pressure on the employers and the government.
Okay, thank you. Brian Nugent from the HMRC says, as a PCS member who returned a vote for strike action, who works for the HMRC, will I still be represented in pay negotiations?
And the answer is yes. And the answer is yes in two ways. Firstly, any ongoing dialogue between PCS and HMRC about the future, then clearly our HMRC negotiators will be taking the lead there. But for here and now, and irrespective of the multi-year deal done in HMRC, if we get more money now off the government, we've made it clear that has to be spread right across the board, because we don't have a single member in PCS anywhere who has had pay rises in the public sector that cushion them against 11.1% inflation, which is actually more than 16% for most of our members on low pay. So whatever people have had, they need more. And we're clear. And we've said to the government, I just want to make this point, we obviously want 10% and we want them to reopen the pay remit talks. But we've also made it clear that if they want to get into talks about how pay can change over the future, that's all well and good, we're up for that. But we want money now. And we want money now because the crisis is now. And we are very clear, you look at lots of private sector employers and they are giving people, in some cases, big lump sums of money as one-off to tide them through a Christmas period. We've not even had that offer. You know, they're not even saying we're prepared to give people X amount because we know the winter is really tough. Nothing. So we want 10% and different pay systems. And that's what we want, but we want money now. And I think that is the key thing. And one thing the government clearly could do, Fran, I think is making the point, is commit to negotiations about fair pay systems moving forward. Deal with the nonsense of different rates of pay everywhere, put the civil service back where it should be. But they can do that, and that will take time. But what they could do immediately is to say, and what we're going to do now is put money on the table to spread out for people to get through this crisis. And I think that's the key thing we want to say to people is to avert the strike, they must put money on the table now so that people can get it when their bills are going through the roof and people are experiencing the worst winter that they'll have ever seen.
Okay, thank you. I'm very conscious of the time, but I'm going to try and get through a couple more. Kane Barron says, if an offer is made under 10%, but includes all the other demands, will this still be put back to us?
So yes, the answer to that is yeah. Look, if the government make a significant offer to the union that deals with all of our issues, if it is a serious offer, even if it is short of our full demands, I have no doubt that the NEC would want to put that to members if it felt we'd made significant concessions. Look, my view is if we ended up with all our money back on pensions, no redundancy, no cuts in redundancy scheme, and we got a situation where we got a commitment to job security for everyone. The government was to say, we'll give you 9.75%, not the 10 you asked for, then it would be folly not to recognise that would be a stupendous victory. So yes, our position is if there's meaningful things on the table, we would want to consult members about them. But what we won't do is what the government is trying to change the law to say, is any change must automatically be balloted, because of course what we know is if they were to say instead of 2%, we'll give you 2.1, I mean, that is a joke that doesn't require us to reballot, but ultimately members will need to decide if a significant offer is good enough.
Okay, thank you. David says, what do you mean by full strike pay? Is it our normal individual daily wage or a flat rate for everybody?
So the NEC has decided that what will happen is if any member is on strike, that we will seek to reimburse them to a point of what they would have had they not had strike deductions. And that means that what will happen here is that people are not losing pay for being on strike. Now, what the NEC's agreed is, because obviously that requires people to show what they've lost, because that's different for every person, is that it has agreed that we will immediately pay a lump sum payment to everyone on strike straight away, to ensure that people have already had some money, and we will put in place systems to ensure that we can make up the rest, if there is the rest, for people as quickly as we can. And I just want to make it clear, the reason we did that is if you go for a lump sum, you'll have some people who will still lose out, other people who may do better than normal. And so the principle here is people shouldn't be better off or worse off if they're striking for other people, Fran. So that's the answer to that question. But just to be clear, when we call action of everyone, there is no strike pay, because obviously that is not sustainable to do. But even then, if you were a member in real dire difficulty, we would still urge people to support those strikes, but to talk to your rep about getting some help from the union through hardship funds and other means of trying to support people.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go with a couple more, and then we'll probably ask you to sum up, Mark. So Russell Hall says, I'm to receive a long service and good conduct medal in recognition of over 30 years of exemplary service with an unblemished career history. To qualify for this, I've had to demonstrate that I've never been the subject of any kind of disciplinary action, investigation, or bad conduct. I'm concerned that by engaging in strike action, that may be considered detrimental to my good conduct and held against me. Is that the case?
Well, first of all, congratulations, Russell, for what sounds like a very long career in the civil service. The straightforward situation is nobody should suffer legally a detriment for taking lawful industrial action. And therefore you have a legal right to strike that is recognised by the employers and even still by this government, that people have the right to go on strike if there is a lawful ballot. What I would suggest is, without knowing Russell's employer, Fran, is if he really has a concern, he should either email us in or talk to his local rep. But if there was any sniff of any employer seeking detriments against people going on strike, we would immediately take that case up in a way to force the employer to back down. I don't think that would be the case. In fact, to be clear, there are many, many, many senior managers who have supported strike action. Some of them have been in a very small minority because they wanted to support the union. And I think, you know, what we say to that point really is, if management thought they could bully people and put detriments on them, it makes it harder for people to go on strike, which is why the law doesn't allow them to do that.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple more then. Alistair Prow says a key date in HMRC is the 31st of January. It's the self-assessment deadline. Is our reballot too late for that?
So the reballot that is currently will not be starting until early 2023. So it is going to be too late for that. And obviously, had we got over the line in HMRC, that is something that I'm sure the group would have asked us to consider, whether the 31st was an area to target. So unfortunately, the answer to that is yes. And I just want to say to Alistair that obviously, in considering the reballot, when your reps talked about this today, we're very conscious that the sooner you do it, the sooner we can get involved and take action. But that what we can't afford is to have the same result next time and not get over the line, which the employer would no doubt exploit. So in balance, I think it's best to just give ourselves a few more extra weeks to make sure that we smash it. And I just want to say to anyone from HMRC that we are absolutely confident we can do it if we're all going to be working together to get over the line. And actually, if your management do believe they can exploit the situation, if in HMRC we get over the line in a further ballot and smash the threshold, it will actually show them that we're in a stronger position. and the government will see that we've got another 30,000 members joining the strike 6 weeks in. So no, we couldn't make that 31st date, Alistair, but I hope you'll accept if we do win the ballot and get over the threshold, there'll be lots of HMRC members can still do both targeted and national with us.
Okay, so coming to an end then, Chris Helm asks, will you be coordinating our strike action with other unions? And Adrian from Portsdown Vector's HMRC branch says, are you still having talks with the TUC and other unions regarding what he describes as a general strike? So do you want to respond, Mark?
So yeah, so I've been talking to the TUC today on that latter question, and I'm very proud to say the proposals that PCS has been making for many years about the importance of coordinated action. I think that we, without ever taking anything for granted, I think we can be more confident that we are going to see strike action on a par virtually with what we saw in 2011 over pensions than ever before. And so, yes, we're talking to the TUC, and yes, there are real discussions going on about which unions, what date. And if you think about it, we've had our ballot results. But at the moment, every teaching union is balloting, the firefighters are balloting, every health union is balloting, some have already declared results. If all of those unions get over the line, in addition to us, in addition to the postal workers, the college lecturers who've been on strike today, and the RMT and ASLEF, combined, that will be well in excess of 2 million people. So we are not just talking to the TUC, and we're very optimistic about where that will go. We're also individually talking to unions, and I want to make that point as well. So, you know, what I said earlier, if we look at transport, if the RMT are on strike on the rail, it obviously means that if we bring some people out in the transport sector at the same time, it's going to have more effect than if it's just us out. So we're having individual conversations about coordination, as well as TUC conversations with everybody. And I know that a lot of tonight has been focusing on the levy, but I think if people take one step back, what you're going to see after Christmas is loads of action. I'll probably have had a load of publicity and made a real effect. And then probably very early in January, announcements starting to come about the potential for huge amounts of our colleagues in the public sector taking action as well as us. So, you know, this could really escalate quite quickly and put the government in a difficult position. And I think that's what we should really be thinking about the strength of the position that we may be in and our chance of winning something.
Okay, thank you. Look, we are running out of time, and I probably haven't even scratched the surface of the number of questions that have come in. So if we haven't answered your specific question, then I give you my apologies, and anything you feel hasn't been covered, do email into us, and we'll be doing more of these sorts of events as well, so we can make sure anything that remains unanswered gets picked up. Just really, Mark, before you sum up, or in summing up, lots of people are still sending in questions asking when their particular group will be taking action and when the dates are going to be announced. So in your closing remarks, in your summing up, can you explain how we will communicate that and that nobody is going to have that sprung upon them?
Okay, so I do both at once, yeah?
Yeah, if you could.
Yeah,
I think
okay. So just to be clear, so the only action so far that the NEC has agreed covers members in the Home Office, in Transport and in DEFRA, and in the Rural Payments Agency, specifically in DEFRA. And we're now talking to those reps and members, including having members meetings, that will be linked to the serving of the notice. So every member will be told, wherever you are, if you're coming into play for action, that there'll be a minimum of legal notice of 14 days to the employer, but people will know well in advance of that. So so nobody is suddenly going to get a shock. And you can see the areas that we've currently called. In addition to that, there are DWP members that announcements will be made pretty shortly in at least 2 job centres where we're going to take quite a bit of action, I think, over the Christmas period that will be communicated. For anyone else, because obviously there are ongoing discussions, obviously talk to your GECs or your leading lay reps. And if you think we're missing a trick in your area, because actually if we were to call you out over the Christmas period or in January, it'd have a real effect. Don't keep it to yourself. Make sure we know about that, because what we want to do is get as many people taking this action as possible that has a real maximum effect. but everybody will know well in advance. So I can say, I think on Monday night, I'm doing a Zoom rally for all our members who are driving examiners that coincides with serving of notice. That will talk about what we're doing there. I mentioned earlier, I think we're going to the DVLA shortly, where we'll be talking to members there about what we're planning. So I know you'll be doing the same, Fran. Yeah. So we'll come out and talk to members, and that's the way that we want to handle it. In finishing, Fran, apart from thanking yourself, everyone behind the scenes who's fielding tons of questions, our brilliant interpreter, Richard, as ever, I want to thank people for the questions, because I just want to finish on this thought. We are all, I think, on this call, all united in believing we've been treated disgracefully, and the government will continue to treat us disgracefully unless we can force them to do otherwise. That's the blunt truth of where we are. We can't wait for a general election 2 years away. We can't hope that others will win for us. We have to do it for ourselves. If our belief is we deserve better and we must get better, we have the biggest vote we've ever had. So the tactics that we're using here are designed to put more pressure on than ever before. And in that context, whilst it's absolutely legitimate for people to ask why the levy, isn't there another way? I hope that if we just take one step back and say to ourselves, right, if over Christmas we're going to see PCS in the headlines and real effective action, then more will follow. Those members can afford to do it because we can sustain them by looking after them, by using £4 million from a central union and raising more. And we then ask everyone to come out for a one-day strike, for example, with other unions. It won't be like in 2011 when we had a one-day strike with other unions and nothing else happened. We will have already had weeks of serious action, mass action, hopefully with lots of others, and then the potential still for another 2 or 3 months of targeted action and further all-member action to really put the government under the pump. This is a government that's hanging on by its fingernails. And it's the government that, if we look at the workers, they are taking strike action everywhere. I think if we keep the pressure on them, it'll be impossible for them to think they can look the other way when 40,000 of their own workforce are using food banks, 45,000 of them are sort of claiming benefits. So now's the time for us to recognise our vote was historic. We've got to stick together. If people have a query or a worry, do raise it. If there is any member who paying the levy tips them into incredible financial difficulty, they should talk to the union, and we would try to help them in the way we would if any members asked to come out on strike. If you can urge colleagues who aren't in the union, now's the time to join. And if, when the announcements come up in your branch, if the first thing you can think about is solidarity messages, attending picket lines, and what we need to be here now, I hope, is a voice for those members who don't understand the levy, to explain to them why it's a better way of pressurizing the government than asking people to lose tons of money. Then I think if we do that, we harness that, and in January we get HMRC on board with plenty of others, it'll be a campaign like we haven't seen before, starting with a historic vote and growing and putting serious pressure on, not one where we're seeing to protest. And I think we can win. And I hope that we all decide that this is the time where we have to win. And whether that's giving 12 quid or 20 quid, taking selective strike action, or coming out when we ask everyone to come out unpaid. We've seen RMT members do it, some of whom are poorer paid than some of our own members. Postal workers doing it against incredible intimidation. Lecturers today starting a 3-day strike. And we've seen countless other workers do it and win in the private sector and unite on buses, in the docks and everywhere else. I think we can win, Fran. So I want to thank everyone. Always raise any issues with us. Don't keep it to yourself. But let's remember, the enemy here is the government and people who think we can deliver services in poverty and they'll get away with it. They're the enemy. We are standing together to win. So solidarity with everyone coming out on strike in the next month, everyone paying the levy, and everyone who hopefully will be bringing out with other unions early in the new year. We can win. We deserve to win. Let's make sure it happens.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark, and thank you to all of you who have joined the call tonight, and I hope you found it useful. As I say, my apologies if I didn't get to every single question because they were just coming in droves, so we will make sure we get plenty of information out there. We'll do more events like this. As Mark said, there'll be members' meetings taking place over the days and weeks ahead. I want to thank Richard, as always, our interpreter. He works tirelessly and makes sure the event is as successful as possible. To you, I just say thank you for your time. Please remember that message about solidarity. It's one of the most important things we can do, isn't it? Support each other, stand up for each other, and make sure that we can deliver action that will make a difference. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Speak to you all very soon. Take care.